Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Podcasting to you from a field here in beautiful rural Ireland, I'm Trev Downey, and this is Molby On The Spot, your weekly chance, thanks to Anfield Index Pro, to hear the wit and wisdom of Liverpool and Denmark legend Jan Molby as we talk about all things Liverpool Football Club and some other things besides. So let's begin it once more. Good evening, Jan.
Yes, good evening, Trevor. I hope you're well.
I am, my friend, I am. We have no end of things to discuss tonight. 2 games to look back on, 2 games to look forward to, and several other little incidents that are taking place around the football world. We'll delve into 1 or 2 of those as well. The most bananas one I've just seen, and this is completely out of context. I'm not going to try to explain it or where it comes from because I don't know, but I've just seen a discussion here where they have done one of those lovely graphics showing Cristiano Ronaldo as centre forward for PSG with Messi one side of him and I think Mbappe the other, and I'm just wondering what in the name of God is going on here. It was Neymar the other. I think they must be expecting that Mbappe will go, and this is a plan for next year. Have you heard anything about this, Jan?
No, I haven't. But I watched a little bit of PSG at the weekend when they lost, and Neymar and Mbappe played. There was no Messi and Neymar played. There was no Mbappe, and I'm kind of looking at that team and I'm thinking, 50% of that team is Mbappe. So could you imagine if they decided, well, they wouldn't decide to let him go, but he would go, and then they'd replace him with Ronaldo. I just couldn't imagine that in a million years. I mean, they're trying to establish themselves as one of the big boys in European competition, and taking Messi was a gamble because that hasn't been a rip-roaring success. I would be amazed if they needed another shirt seller.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it's a purely commercial thing, it would appear to make little sense for the people, considering the owners. If it's a footballing decision, that makes even less sense to me. So watch this space. Maybe it's completely nonsense, but we do start to get to where we want to go, which is back to Liverpool Football Club and the results we've had of late. And if February ended with a lovely bit of trophy winning and silverware hoisting against Chelsea in the League Cup final, then March has begun pretty effectively, functionally, I would say, with wins over Norwich and West Ham. Now, in the remainder of this month, we have on the 8th, that's tomorrow night as we record, the home leg against Inter, where we're up on the opposition. And then we have Brighton on Saturday, midday, kind of 12:30 kickoff in the Premier League. 4 days later then, on the Wednesday evening, we have Arsenal away. The Man United game is on the roster here, just says postponed beside it. I have no idea what's going to happen to that. And then on Sunday the 20th, which is the last official game in March, we have the next FA Cup game against that's decided last night. I thought maybe was it the opposition we were to face for that. I thought I heard that game was. Oh no, it's tonight that game. Isn't that correct?
Yes, so it's Monday night we're recording this, Trevor, and
yes.
Nottingham Forest are playing Huddersfield this evening, and then we will know who's going to play each other in the 4 quarterfinals, and whether we play. I guess the Friday night might come into play, isn't it? So you might potentially looking at games on the 18th, 19th, and 20th of March. But certainly Monday the 21st won't come into play because it's international break. But yeah, it's another sort of, it's another icing on the cake, isn't it? We've got a quarter final of the FA Cup to look forward to, and you know what a win in a quarter final means. It means another match at Wembley because both semi-finals, as well as the final, will of course be at the new Wembley.
Which is what we're trying to very much encourage our team to get used to doing, which is being at that place, at that stadium, and winning football matches. And the reason that we can look forward to that quarterfinal is because of the 5th round victory on Wednesday night over Norwich. I had a tremendously frustrating experience trying to watch this on streams. I've often complained about it. Just my poor internet here means I can't get the usual kind of thing that most people can avail of. So if I can't pay for it via the big boys of the satellite world, then I'm kind of screwed. And these choppy streams that I was watching were an absolute nightmare. I did get the impression that we were very much strolling to it, and then perhaps let Norwich in a little bit, and it made it sort of unnecessarily nervy towards in the second half. Again, from what I could deduce. What was your impression of the match overall, Jan? And I mean, I think it would be churlish to say that they didn't deserve to win it because it was such a coast. They were really coasting to it in the first half. But I don't know whether what to make of the fact that there was that goal conceded. It's almost like we need to have an inquiry now if we even concede a goal. I mean, it's a 2-1 win. We should probably just shut up and take it. I don't know. What was your overall take?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get. I mean, we're having a tremendous run of winning matches, isn't it? And in amongst that, there will be games like even the West Ham game on Saturday and the Norwich game in the Cup, isn't it? That when we at the end of the season talk through great moments and memorable things, these games won't be what we talk about, isn't it? But you need them. So the first thing, and I have to say, Trev, it was predicted on this show, wasn't it? There would be loads of changes, and I think we made 9 or 10 changes for the cup game against Norwich. And that didn't surprise me. It didn't make a great deal of difference. Obviously, some of the boys who came in. So when you make that many changes and you have a look at the players who come in, you know that some of them are sort of part of the rotation, even for big games. And then, some of the others are just getting another game, which, for some of them might be the case again in the quarterfinal against whoever we play. So, but in the end, we have so much quality, and you go back 2 years when we used to, mainly in the League Cup, when we used to change the team, we had to even get some youngsters and some of them in for the under-23s. That's not the case anymore, Trevor. Is we got a really strong squad, and we showed that. Yeah, the goal we conceded, and nothing the goalkeeper could do about it. And of course, when you only win in 2-1, it makes it a little bit nervy, a little bit exciting, isn't it? But in the end, we ran away with them. There was some really good performances by some of the players, and there was others that just looked a little bit short of match fitness.
You would say as well, wouldn't you? And we have to be fair here, because the kid has achieved or been given limited chances to prove his worth, and on most occasions this season, when given one, you'd have to say Takumi Minamino is really putting his hand up and saying, I deserve a place in this squad. I deserve minutes on the park in bigger games too, because they were 2 very tidily taken finishes. So I was very impressed with that.
Well, he appears to be one of those that not playing, not being part of, not being really close, and he knows that he won't get any starting in the big games, but he appears not to bother him. A, he's enjoying the experience of being at Liverpool. B, he's using every minute to try and improve himself as a player, and by that I include all the training and the minutes that he gets in. So I think he's looking at it I think the way you should do, but it can be very difficult for footballers with egos. I mean, all footballers have egos. It just depends on how big they are. And some are bigger than others, but we all have egos. And that can be very difficult, isn't it? But he seems to have accepted that, okay, this is what it is, isn't it? But I will still get opportunities. I have opportunities to be part of it, and I get opportunities to play. Klopp came out after the game and said he felt it was the best game he'd had for Liverpool. If that's how Klopp feels, I think we should all agree that is probably the case. And scoring 2 goals was very nice. I mean, it gives, for somebody who's not going to come away with the same career at Liverpool as as Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, or all the others. And it still gives him something that, because I get when he's back home in 30 years' time as a gentleman of a certain age, he'll be talking to his kids and grandkids, and he'll still be talking about it. And then we had that game against Norwich in the FA Cup, and you know how big the FA Cup is, and I scored 2 and all that. So I like his attitude. We all want everybody to play in every game, but that is not possible. And we've been screaming out for bigger squad for a couple of years now. Now we've got it. We have to accept that some players won't play as much as they want to. But I thought he did well. I've always liked him. I think he's a good player. Whether he's absolutely to the level that we need in terms of being in the top 2 and a long way, certainly some way clear of the others, and being probably amongst the 3 best teams in Europe, which is also the same as being between the 3 best teams in the world, isn't it? Whether he's got that quality, I don't know, but he's got good attitude. Gets you a long way, Trevor. Good attitude causes you no problems. I've been a manager myself, and the one thing I hated was the footballers where you spend a lot of time and energy. I couldn't have that. This kid, I don't think he spent any time or energy. He comes in every morning, smile on his face, probably speaks very little English, but just gives his best in everything that he does.
There's an entire show to be had in that little point there. I would love to hear all the various endless stories about the players that used to piss you off because they were so high maintenance. I have to say, I think that is a summer show in the making right there when we've got no matches to talk about. But, just in that vein of people being disgruntled, I think it was you who first said it to me. And then successively the likes of Aldo, Peter Beardsley, might have Kevin McDonald did, a handful of other lads as well. Paul Walsh did mention this idea of when people in the squad, when you were playing, were out of the team. Was it they were? What did you call them? The sour grapes? Is that right? Does that sound? Have I got that right?
Yeah, you do have the sour grapes gang, yeah.
Yeah, the sour grapes gang. So where I'm going with this is, right, obviously they're the disgruntled lads who aren't getting the shout for the first team. And you talked about footballers and egos and all the rest of it. But I have to say, I get the impression, because obviously squads were that bit smaller as well, but I get the impression that nobody was happy being a squad player in your day. Whereas I think there might be a slight kind of mentality shift over the last while, where you do see lads who sort of accept their lot. I'm not saying that Taki Minamino's being unambitious or just accepting a fate, but there are players who acknowledge that they'll get limited minutes, and they seem happy enough to stay around if they're making a good living and in a good environment and all the rest of it. But I got very much the impression when I was a kid, from the limited bits you'd hear, that everyone fucking hated being out of the team, and it was a cause of constant consternation. Am I right in that? Were there people in your day who are actually, oh, you know what, I'll just tag along here. If I get a game here or there, that'll be fine. I'm making a decent living and that'll do. Because I don't remember people like that, if there were.
So the Sour Grapes gang was a bit tongue-in-cheek. I actually think that the ones who weren't involved, they were probably named by some of the bankers in the first team, and they went, oh, here we go, Sour Grapes gang, because when you weren't involved, you weren't involved, Trevor, So you would have you'd have for the match day at home, you'd have a squad of 14. And then you would come in and 13 players would then play. And then the one extra man would then be given a ticket for the main stand, and he'd go sit in the main stand. And the ones who weren't in the squad, and that could be because of injuries or not being picked, you would then come in off your own accord. You'd get no car park ticket. So you had to find somewhere to park around Anfield. I mean, imagine that today, where we're going to park, find somewhere around the streets of Anfield, So that's what you had to do. And then you'd come in. And it was a bit, like today, I don't know how many they have on the coach when they arrive, but I guess every first team member would be on that coach and be taken into Anfield and be looked after. It wasn't like that in our day. So if you were injured or not in the squad, you'd kind of come in. You walk into the dressing room, you sit in the corner, have a cup of tea. Nobody would talk to you because you would have no use to them. And then you'd go out through the gates or into the turnstiles and go and sit in the main stand, So it's kind of, when I look back at it, I can kind of understand why it then became a bit of a Sour Grapes gang. And then, of course, had you not been involved, you didn't have to come in and train on a Sunday. Now, that was inconvenient. Today, footballers are quite prepared to train every day and some days twice, and that's just how they live, isn't it? But it kind of in our day, Sunday was inconvenient, and you always feel, why are we coming in training on a Sunday? We're coming in training on Sunday because you weren't involved on a Saturday. So it sort of became, that's how it all developed, isn't it? You know, but the worst thing, of course, was that we had a short spell of Ray Houghton and John Aldridge not being involved, especially in away games. Kenny had a period where he wouldn't play Peter Beardsley and Ray Houghton in away games because they might not have been physically the strongest players. So we had a spell of Ray and Aldo not being involved in away games, and then they would come in and train on a Sunday. And then, of course, because you're out already from the house and whatever, they go out on a beer, isn't it? You know what I mean? So it was kind of counterproductive having them in on a Sunday anyway, isn't it? But I think it was a little bit of tongue in cheek. So I have to say, and it's easy to say that in my first 6 years at Liverpool, 84 to 96, very successful. 84 to 90, sorry, very successful. There was people not happy not playing, but there was nobody who ever threw the towel in or wanted to look to go away. But that changed in the early 90s. But I always remember Roy Evans saying to me, and he said, there's a different breed of footballers. We have to treat them differently. We have to do things differently. And there was players at Liverpool in the 90s who came in, gave it a bit of a go, maybe it wasn't what they thought mainly, I would think, because of the lack of success, you know. And there was players then who, due to their egos and whatever, just really didn't want to know. And they fell into sort of that high maintenance category, you know. I mean, there was no breakfast laid on for us when we used to go down to the training ground, but the lady in there, she would make you a cup of tea and a piece of toast. And then we always had this one player come in and go, any chance, darling, you do me a bacon butty? And you're thinking, for fuck's sake, we don't do breakfast. You know what I mean? Eat at home, isn't it? But, you know, it's like, then you go in the dressing room and go, any chance of a tracksuit pair of bottoms? You know, it's cold, and you go, fuck, we train in shorts every single day. Yeah. So it was just relentless. You know, you leave him on a team coach in an away game, and he's 3 minutes late, and people will go. A lot of people, even to this day, go, what's the fucking problem with that? And I said, you have no idea. When a player turns up late for anything at a football club, it's World War. We shouldn't say that, but it's real trouble, isn't it? You know, when anyone turns up late for anything, it causes all sorts of moods. You know what I mean? People get really pissed off it. And so, yeah, we had some of them who were fucking high maintenance, Trevor. You know what I mean? If you have to be there for 9:30, why can't you be there for 9:30? You know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's even a cultural thing because, you know, I suppose we're kind of famous, this part of the world, for being comparatively relaxed about a lot of stuff. But it'd be a personal trait of mine that I would always rather be an hour early, like a full hour early, than a minute late. Like if that was the choice, I'll go with the hour early and I'll just sit there. So I get it. Yeah, I can imagine. And I don't know, is it other fellas thinking, well, I've made the effort, so why can't you fucking make the effort?
Of course.
It's that always simple, isn't it? Yeah.
It's always like that, Trevor. I can get here for 9:30. Why can't you? And you kind of look at you and you go, calm down, will you? What's the problem here? And you you know, like Ronnie Moran, like you just said, Ronnie Moran always used to say, you can never be early, son. You can only ever be late, you know. And it's a fact, isn't it? You know, there was no such thing as being early. They only noticed when you were late. And I have to say, over the years, we were very blessed. You know, we had some very punctual footballers, but we did have a few in the early 90s which sort of turn in when it suited them. And that's what pisses me off even. So Ian Russ and me lived on the other side of the Mersey tunnels. And sometimes the tunnel could be closed or whatever, and we'd be late. But you'd turn up and you'd be going, listen, I'm really sorry, but the tunnel, I'm really, really sorry. And you look, and others would just turn up and go, what is the fucking problem here? You know what I mean? So what? I'm here now, aren't I? You know what I mean? So it's also how you sort of deal with, you know, sometimes you can't help it sometimes, you know, crashing the tunnel or whatever, you couldn't help it, isn't it? But, you know, but it's the people who turn up and go, what is the big deal? You know what I mean? I'm here now, aren't I? You know, and then when they were there, they did fuck all anyway, you know what I
mean? Yeah, it's an attitudinal thing. And, you know, that is one of the things that we look at with this group, you know, under this manager, and they do seem, most of them, from what we can see at least, from what we can see, from what
there's no one left at that football club who turns up a minute late, Trevor.
I wouldn't think so, man. No, I wouldn't think so. It
is not. People always think it's out of respect for the manager. No, it's out of respect for your teammates.
Yeah, Yeah, that's it right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it
Absolutely.
right there, which is why those teammates have a right to get pissed off if you are pricking about and turning up late on a regular basis. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I think we could possibly think of one or two clubs where that might even still be happening, where they would contrast very much with the culture that Liverpool have going on in the Klopp era. But it brings us to another. Narrowish win, a 1-goal win in the league at the weekend. Thankfully, I was in working order, able to watch the full details of Liverpool West Ham and do the show with all the information to hand. And you look at the overall stats of the game. I think we had really high kind of pass accuracy and more than twice the amount of passes completed than they did, about 22 attempts to their 13. Both of us had 5 on target. We have 70% of the ball. But it doesn't really tell the story of the game. And, you had sort of opened my eyes to the concept of David Moyes as a thoughtful football man, because for a lot of us Liverpool fans, first of all, you're the Everton manager, you're sort of always going to be open and up for ridicule. Then if you decide to make a career choice, which brings you to Manchester United, and things go the way they go, it's always just going to be, you're never going to be giving yourself too many opportunities for Liverpool fans to be praising you. Let's put it that way. But I was really struck by a chat we had a couple of years ago where you were talking about, you had a few conversations with David Moyes, and that he was a very sort of insightful, thoughtful football man. And I'll tell you what, Jan, the truth of that is being borne out in this spell that he's having with West Ham. What he's doing with that club is really, really impressive. They're still on a run in Europe. I think we discussed on Raw after the West Ham game that if Moyes was to get them into top 6 again, it would be the first time the club's ever gotten successive top 6 finishes, or top 7 or whatever it is, which is another stunning stat. And, you have to take your hat off when you see a club that's well run and has a game plan. And, they were missing a vital component for them in Declan Rice, and still really carried a very, very big threat, as we had sort of feared they would.
I thought it was a really good game. Obviously all the stats lean heavily in our favour, but it's like how modern football is played today, Trev, is that if you're not the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City and maybe some of the other, you have to accept that you play a lot of football without the ball, and that can be very hard to accept, isn't it? Because when you start to play football as a kid, isn't it? You're associated with a ball, isn't it? I'm going to play football with the ball. Well, now when you're playing in the Premier League, you have to accept that a lot of the time you play football, you actually play without the ball. So you have to accept that. And then you have to accept that when you get the ball, you then really have to do things as quick as you can, because that's the only chance you really have to hurt the opposition. That's what we saw with West Ham on Saturday. The chances that they created was in really quick turnovers, where they got themselves through that first press, and then a couple of good passes, and they were in for really, really good chances. And so David Moyes was always going to be a success at clubs like Everton and West Ham as long as they gave him the time, because he's quite capable of doing the job, but you need to leave him on his own and just go, listen, I believe this guy can do the job. Leave it. It's not going to happen overnight. There's no success for David overnight. It takes time. But you look at the players that he picks up. I don't think there's a Premier League manager who's bought more players from the Championship and turned them into really good players, isn't it? And I think they showed that today. So when we got the team, you just mentioned Declan Rice, I was happy. And I was unhappy because I wanted to see Declan Rice play at Anfield. I've seen him play live twice this season, I think, but he's been at home. So I wanted to see him play at Anfield, with our press and energy and tempo, and see how he coped with that. So I didn't get to do that because I really like him. I think he's a really good footballer. But on the other hand, I was made up because we wouldn't be playing against certainly one of the better centre midfield players in the land. But nevertheless, without him, they still found a way of being relatively compact. Apart from that early chance from Mo Salah, really well worked by Trent's quick free kick. it took a long time before we sort of came to our second chance and the goal eventually. So yeah, a lot of credit to West Ham.
I was taken by something I saw by a journalist who's paid a pretty penny to write about football, talking about how Liverpool have done so tremendously well to put this run together under Klopp and keep the pressure on City, but they have a glaring weakness, which is the high line, which West Ham continue to expose again and again and again. And you read things like that, Jan, and just so you realise that you're not completely mentally, you go and you maybe look up a few statistics and you see that the team who has caught the opposition offside the most is Liverpool with 100 and something. I think it's in the teens times. And the next team down is City with 60 something. And then you realise, okay, so we've nearly done it twice as much as Manchester frickin' City. So maybe it's a ploy. Maybe it's deliberate tactic. Maybe it's something we do brilliantly. And maybe just because of stupid decisions made by the people who run the game about not putting up flags, it gives the impression that other teams are exploiting, in inverted commas, our high line. But they're not, because we're not conceding tremendous amounts of goals. And we're catching these teams offside again and again and again. So it really, it grinds my gears to hear this pointed at and see it pointed at as, oh, that's how you get at Liverpool. It's nonsense, Jan, isn't it?
Yeah. So what do we think here, Trevor? Do we think that the line has got even higher this season?
It feels like it. It does feel like it. Yeah.
And I 100% believe that's got something to do with VAR. That Liverpool are saying, listen, we trust we hold the line. And as long as we hold the line, VAR will help us out in situations where the assistant referee and referees can't make a decision. So I think VAR is helping us in those situations. It gives you the confidence to try these things, isn't it? So if you'd have said 7 months ago when the season started, you'd have gone, whoa. And I think we mentioned on this show, Trevor, that is a very high line we're holding. I think it's fair enough that you mentioned 6 or 7 months ago, isn't it? But we're still doing it, and it's still very successful. And I also think that the stats that's been rolled out to support the way that Liverpool are playing makes that conversation of the high line being a weakness redundant, doesn't it? You know what I mean? So I understand why that pisses you off, isn't it? And can you imagine what it does to the opposition? Knowing that high line, which gives you such little room to play in. You've got no room to want to play one or two passes, isn't it? You have to do what West Ham did on Saturday. You have to do it so quick, and for some players, quicker than what they're capable of. So to call that a weakness is. But I mean, for years they called our full back a weakness, didn't they, Trevor? Because they were just too attacking for some people and didn't defend enough. You know what I mean? So yeah. Welcome to the world of modern football.
Yeah. Modern football punditry and journalism, it's frankly, I think the technical term is a shit show. But, look, regardless of the fact that obviously Jurgen Klopp might have a clue what he's doing, and regardless of the fact that we have people who are very good at carrying out those instructions and keeping that line together, better, one might suggest, even than the old Arsenal crew who used to run around with a rope with Don Howe shouting at them, staying in line. The takeaway from me was we've got two full backs who are right on it at the moment. I'm loving Andy Robertson's form at the moment. Trent is just an assist machine. But I'm really fond of the partnership of Konate and Van Dijk. And it's no slight in Joel Matip, who might be one of my favourite footballers of all time. And you never are anything but happy to see him in the team. But I do love this Konate-Van Dijk partnership. And I think the only hinky moment of the whole match between the two of them was a bit of a dodgy back header by Virgil. But overall, Jan, I think in recent games, he's looking at his absolute sort of majestic best. And the kid beside him, I mean, he's a force of nature. I've heard people try to describe him as ungainly and stuff like that, and it's just, I don't know. I get a bad whiff off it, because to me, watch the game, watch how in control he is of various situations. Someone tried to spin. Do you remember? Who was it that? It was the main man. It was their forward, their centre forward was running down towards the corner flag, and
in the first half.
In the first half, Konate just matched him pace for pace and got there ahead of him, and completely comfortably. And I got a real kick out of that, because I thought, well, he's got the legs in that lad there. He's like Antonio. I wouldn't like to be up against Antonio like in any kind of a physical contest. And it was easy for him. He just held him off. But people are trying to say, oh, he was under pressure. I honestly don't know what people are watching. That partnership, Jan, for me, I think it is our best. I know what Joel brings, but we saw Konate fizzing balls into feet as well. He can do that too.
Well, that's probably the one thing that impresses me more, Trevor, because when you look at him, and I saw him, not in a lot of games for Leipzig, but I saw him play some games, and I expected him to be, well, I could see he was quick, and I could see he was physically strong. What he never did at Leipzig was get into a real rhythm of playing games. But the one thing that's impressed me since he's come to Liverpool is his ability to read the game, and especially his ability to read the game with the ball. Yeah. I mean, it's a thing, Trevor, isn't it? You can only play the passes that you see. If you don't see it, you can't play it. And I get the feeling he sees it all, because he plays some really smart passes straight to the middle at the right time into Sadio Mane, who, especially in the first half, was very good at just dropping into that position and find a bit of spaces. Then Konate almost like automatically go, bang, I've seen it, there you are. So that's the one thing that impresses me more than anything. Centre-halves generally in the modern game, they get more touches of the ball than anyone else. But the majority of them, they pass it to the full-back, to their partner. I think Konate's got more in his locker than that. I don't think he's necessarily he's not the same type of a passer as a Van Dijk. There's a lot of switch balls from Van Dijk from left to right, and he plays long balls in behind. I don't think Konate necessarily is that type of a passer, but I think he's a along the ground, into feet, central passer of the ball. And he's a very, very, very good player. I mean, he enjoyed that physical challenge against Antonio because he knew he wasn't going to come up short. Is it our best partnership? Yeah, I think it is. And it comes back to, and I said it at the time, I was amazed at the interest in the other Leipzig boy that went to Bayern Munich up at Meccano, because I always thought that this fella looked the better. But of course, you had the slight issue with the injuries that he had. But he looks like he's grown up now, and he's there, isn't he? So, and maybe Klopp is just looking after him a little bit in his first season in the Premier League to make sure he doesn't pick up some of those niggling injuries that he was famous for at Leipzig.
Yeah, well, long may this form continue. I have to say, it's an embarrassment to riches, and poor old Joe Gomez can't even get a look in. And there was a time when he was performing arguably better than Virgil van Dijk when they were a partnership. So we are very, very blessed in that region of the team. And in midfield, there was very little that Jurgen could have done, I think, Jan, if we're being perfectly honest. I don't think Harvey Elliott's last couple of showings would have warranted a start. And that was the only thing that I could think of that he might do, given the availability of players that he had. In the end, he went with Henderson, Fabinho and Keita. I was quietly impressed with the amount of work that Naby Keita got through. Nothing really spectacular that people will be giving him 8s and 9s out of 10 in the paper for, but very busy. Decent linking of the play, but also intercepting, covering runs, that kind of thing. They used to call it back in the 80s the silent spade work. That's what they used to call it, or the water carrier, and he gets through a lot of that busy work that you need in a team, as well as being a very talented footballer. So I have to say I was quite impressed with that, and I wasn't necessarily 100% expecting that would happen. I thought Henderson had a very good first half as well, some very good progressive passing, maybe not as the game went on so much. And of course, Fabinho. So that was a unit that functioned pretty well, I thought, because you would have been perhaps a little worried going into the game. But I thought they did well, those three.
Yeah, they did. I agree with you. Naby Keita has that. He has that ability just to take the play the other side, isn't he? He has that little change of pace, or he has that little shift of the hips, and he goes to the other side, and it's a completely different game. He has an ability to open up. So that in itself is good. And Jordan Henderson was Jordan Henderson, very energetic. Yes, better first half than second half. And Fabinho was okay. It wasn't his best game he's ever had for Liverpool. He missed one or two sort of challenges, but again, we've all done that. I mean, nobody's played a game without missing one or two challenges and people running past you from time to time. So it was solid. It was solid enough. As Klopp even said at the end of the game, we were, it was a tough game, isn't it? And I think that reflects in when you look at a lot of individual performances that there was very few sort of outstanding performances, but everybody did their job, and we just kept them at arm's length. Although West Ham will obviously point to those two really good chances at the end.
Luis Diaz probably had another outing that would encourage and excite. Maybe Sadio and Mo couldn't say that they did. Sadio did the business, though, by putting his chance away. Mo not so much. And, he's had a couple of bad-ish games in a row by his standards in terms of being able to affect the game in the ways that he does, which is with, really good passing, which he's thoroughly underrated for, or with chance creation or goal scoring. Sadio Mane took the opportunity that he had, so you can't really knock him on that. And he was playing that central role. I thought he did it pretty well. I mean, it's knee-jerk stuff to be talking about Mo Salah in any way other than he's played about 11,000 minutes of football, so perhaps we might allow a fella to have a couple of games where he's not exactly stellar, and that's, I would also thought, kind of bound to happen too. But I'm looking across that front three, and you do. Diogo Jota must be sitting there thinking, well, hang about, I really did the business when you needed me. I've done the business since I arrived at the club. You could imagine he's, there might be a few sour grapes in his lunchbox over the last couple of days.
Well, I think he'll be privately disappointed because I generally think that he probably doesn't know anymore. He probably doesn't quite know where he is. I think that the next big one, the test, is probably the City away game, depending on who we get in the quarterfinal of the Champions League. But when you look at it, you think, well, the next blockbuster is Manchester City away. And Klopp often have had a tendency to go with what he knows. So it'll be interesting to see who plays in that game, isn't it? But, Shota is... I'm not suggesting he's like Minamino. He's quite happy to be part of it. He's not, because he wants to be out there, and he's more than warranted, isn't it? But it is difficult, isn't it? I mean, what do you do? I don't think anyone expected Luis Diaz to come in and have the impact that he's had. You think, well, okay, you first showed, there's a lot of enthusiasm, blah, blah, whatever, isn't it? But if anything, he's probably improved from game to game, isn't it? So that in itself is almost impossible to leave that kid out, isn't it? So it is interesting what he's going to do. I haven't said that Shota played in the cup game and didn't do particularly well, but Shota isn't necessarily one of these players who need to play well to be a massive part of the game. He can have average games and still get his goals because he's got an uncanny knack of, I'm not sure what it is in it, but he influences games in a way that's sometimes difficult to describe, isn't it? So no worries about him. He's a massive big part of the future. But as I said before, it'll be interesting to see what happens Manchester City away.
You mentioned before, when you were with the club as a player and pre-season would come along and someone would have been signed, and you guys be running the critical eye over the new arrivals, and depending on how they do, footballers, I would imagine, are an incredibly critical bunch of people. But that's not even a footballer thing. If you get a 5 mechanics together, they're all basically taking the piss out of each other and saying your work is shit compared to mine. That's what they do. You bring your car into a mechanic, he'll suck the air in through his teeth and say, who was at this car the last time? It's just a natural thing that we do. But you also have said that if someone comes in and they're genuinely good, that actually gives everybody a bit of a lift. And I've heard, sort of second and third hand that the players are really impressed with Diaz, and they've really taken to him, but also they're genuinely saying, oh, we've got a good one here. And that is a lovely lift, isn't it, for the club, especially now at this time of the season.
Yeah, and it's an incredible lift for the player because the player will be aware of exactly what you mentioned. I mean, players, try and impress players, regardless almost of what it is, it's almost impossible. I mean, you have two sides of the coin. You have the public world that we live in where everybody is over keen to praise people. Sometimes you think, whoa, let's just take 5 minutes out here before we decide, isn't it? But for Luis Diaz to come in, and to be fair, and it doesn't really matter who you are, you come into a new club, you kind of need that. You need that comfort that the players go, he can play. And it is basically as simple as that, Trevor, isn't it? You go, he can play. And by that, you can mean many different things. But you know that when a footballer says about another footballer, he can play, you know he's a good one, isn't it? Because that's nothing to do with fitness or whatever. It's that thing that boy can play, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that everybody at Anfield, even the ones that might be paying the price for Diaz being there, they'll all nod and go, that kid can play. And to be fair, in every game he's played, he showed us he hasn't been at the same level in all his games, but every game he shows something where you go, whoa, this is exciting.
For sure. And, at the end of that game, that hard-fought 1-0 victory, Liverpool were 3 points off Manchester City, level on games played with a superior goal difference to Guardiola's team. And I felt like sort of going around individually to several people and shaking them and going, you see, I mean, stop being so pessimistic. But of course, then United have to play them the next day, so that Manchester City go back to a game more played than us and can extend their lead to 6 points, which they duly did in a way that, I mean, look, I want to talk to you about this very briefly because I know you're at the game, but I didn't see the first half, and apparently United had some sort of attacking threat, at least in the first half. The period of the second half that I was able to stomach, and I wasn't able to stomach much of it. I think I waited till goal number 3 went in. When it went 3-1, I said, okay, fuck this, they're done. Because, honest to God, that opening 20 minutes, 25 minutes of the second half, they are like clown cars at the back. It's shocking, the levels of stuff that's going on. You've got fellas turning their back on the play, lads not arsed to track runners or stick a leg out. Absolutely awful passes out from the back. The state of them defensively is unbelievable. And I know they're up against Manchester City, who will happily exploit any team, and are possibly the best team set up to do that in terms of all the attacking footballers that they have constantly buzzing around. I would say second to us in that regard in terms of pressuring. But Jan, 2 things. One, we absolutely have to believe we're in this, and you can't allow something like yesterday's result to cloud that. And 2, what the fuck is going on there with that shower? I mean, they've got yet another coach in. I see there's a lad called Samuel Luckhurst, who is one of a couple of, let's just say, local hacks who write for Manchester Evening News, and he's leaking that some players have derided Ralph Rangnick's CV, dissatisfied with his methods, questioning why United hired a coach who was working as a sporting director in the Russian league, some unimpressed with his background in Germany, where his sole major triumph was the German Cup with Schalke in 2011. It seems like it's falling inevitably apart there. So 2 things. First of all, about being in the title race. How are you feeling with regard to that? Was that a kick in? Did it sort of take the wind out of your sails a bit? And then second, can you understand what it is that he's even trying to do, or what's going on with that lot?
So the title race, I mean, it just seems to take a bit of air out of the balloon for the title race, but I don't think amongst Liverpool fans, because as much as I only read this online today, that Jamie Redknapp said that Liverpool would be really disappointed with Manchester United's performance. I think Klopp would have looked at that and gone, okay, we can't control that game, so we move on to our next game. So, no, it doesn't greatly change anything for me, because I think City, if you allow them, are quite capable of doing what they did to Manchester United. But there will be games where teams are set better up and they work harder and they get a little bit more joy. First half was very even. Manchester United looked a real threat on the counter-attack. But as you said, second half was embarrassing. And we've all lost games in it, but it's kind of the manner you lose games in it, and they gave up. And that, to be fair, has been the story. I'm not telling you something you don't already know, Trevor. The story since the game has been, form of Manchester United players all having a go at the players and their attitude and not quite understanding this whole thing about playing for Manchester United and whatever. And so, but in terms of what we're, no, I don't think so. I mean, we still got to go up there. They'll still have other games where they can slip up, isn't it? But having said that, I had almost convinced myself that Manchester United might get something from this game. At the end of it all, it's a derby. It's a derby that over the last 2 years has mainly been won by the away team. And I just thought that Manchester United had those qualities on the break. But when you have a non-existent midfield and a non-existent defence, you're in big trouble. And that's exactly what they did. So what are their plans? No, I have no idea what the plans is, Trevor. But to be fair, neither have they. They don't know where they're going either. It's very much a sort of a football club that lives for the moment. The moment I was there, the first game of the season, I think it was the first game of the season, where they, prior to kickoff, paraded Rafael Varane to the crowd. And it creates an atmosphere. And they won 4-1 or 5-1, and everybody's. And then the next thing is Ronaldo. It's like a club who lives for those moments. And I call them Instagram moments. Things you can put up on Instagram to your 100 million followers. But it doesn't get you anywhere. Because what gets you somewhere is 38 games in a season where you work your socks off in every single game. And when you're not playing well, you find a way of doing things. Manchester United is about something totally different, isn't it? So until they get rid of all that, they aren't going anywhere. And I think a lot of Manchester United fans have reached that conclusion. They've kind of put a line in the sand and gone, I can't take any more of this, Trevor. Because can you imagine the embarrassment of, you support a football club and that's what they give you. It's very, very difficult to live with. So I think it's fair to say that it'll be a while before we see them back at the level that City and Liverpool are at the moment. I always think that the Premier League is a better product when Manchester United are right in amongst it. But it looks like they've got some work to do. And in terms of the manager, I'm not blaming him. Who turns down the opportunity to manage Manchester United? Is he good? Is he not good? I really don't know. But I do get the feeling that first we blamed Mourinho with this group of players, and then we blame Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and now with Ralph Rangnick, maybe runs a bit deeper than just the manager. I always think that the football clubs where the manager's in charge, they're the ones who have success. And I look at some of the Premier League clubs and I go, who's in charge of Liverpool? When was the last time we had a player who, in the eyes of the supporters, was more important than the manager? I can't remember that. City, since Guardiola's turned up, isn't it? They're the clubs who have successes, the managers who can kind of go. Because you can't have, when you drop a player and the player is sulking, i.e. say Ronaldo yesterday, okay, the story was he was out with a hip injury. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But in the aftermath of it all, there is people trying to put out and support Cristiano Ronaldo, whereas you should be supporting the manager and the football club, isn't it? So until you get that right and we all row in the same, we're not bothered to have it, but until they start rowing in the same direction, they ain't going nowhere. And I think that's a long way away now.
It feels like it. It does feel like it. That's tremendous.
We've been there, Trev, haven't we? Without, I would say, the waving of the flag.
Yeah.
I think there's something about Liverpool that doesn't allow the players to wave the flag. We've been done. We've had some horrible defeats, but that's been lack of quality, not waving the flag. But Manchester United almost looks like if some of them have gone. And then you hear all these stories the day after. I mean, who are the players to judge the manager? That's not their job. The board will do that. You have to do your job. Don't hide behind the manager, and you don't pick the team, And it's not as if some of the players are unhappy. I've actually pulled up trees, I heard Eric Bailly is not happy with not playing. He's been there for 4 years. I mean, why do you think he hasn't played in 4 years? There's a reason, So, But anyway, these are the least of our problems, that's for sure, Trevor.
Yeah, I'm genuinely loving that. Instagram analogy, I have to say. I mean, like, Instagram is one of those places where, yeah, it's just all about the image. There are, God bless them, attractive young ladies who basically have millions and millions of followers who are basically just arse models. And now that's exactly how I'm going to think of Manchester United from now on. That's tremendous. I'm very, very happy with that. In terms of City, just briefly before we talk again about the games that are coming up, we left ourselves less time than usual, but that's okay. You sat there and watched that game. Were City awesome? Are they? Was that what you took away, or was it more the story of the sort of dysfunction of their opponents?
So we got criticised a little bit by people because we didn't pay enough respect for Manchester City performance. But when you see that yesterday, and what we've seen subsequently, the story is Manchester United. The story will never be how well Manchester City played. It'll always be the disarray that Manchester United are in. So I thought City played well, but I didn't think. I was amazed that Guardiola came out and talked about the second half was as good as we played since I've been here. And I thought, I like teams to play well when the oppositions are playing well. When two good teams go really at each other and you go, wow, that was a bit special, isn't it? But United didn't play well. So, yeah, City did okay. It took them a long time till they got that third goal. Yes, second half was totally domination. But we've seen City do that against so many teams in the past. And so, yeah, I thought City did really well. In many ways, City probably needed that. They had the defeat against Spurs at home, and then they went to Everton and won 1-0. That was a little bit lackluster, wasn't it? So they probably needed that second half, probably for themselves as well, because you could sense when you go to Etihad, generally, Trevor, there's sort of an expectation of what kind of game you're going to see. But yesterday, to be fair, against Manchester, there was excitement, and there was okay, this is for real now. Liverpool are breathing down our necks. We got to get this done. We got to find our best formation. So the atmosphere was slightly different, which, to be fair, suited the Etihad. There was a good atmosphere, and yeah, in the end, they won it. They won ever so comfortable. Did they play at a level we can't cope with? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, the way that we play in our front, boys will cause any problem. So I have to be honest, Trevor. Sometimes I work in the media. We talk up these games and we go, "This is going to be a belter, isn't it?" More often than not, it's probably not, isn't it? But City, Liverpool, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, wow, just watch this space. And, it's coming up fast on us because we have 4 games left in March. We play Inter tomorrow night. We've got Brighton, then Arsenal, and then the FA Cup game before a bit of a break. And the next scheduled match is the 2nd of April against Watford. So let's talk briefly. There's no point in us talking too much about the Inter Milan game, not because we're 2-0 up, because anything can happen in a Champions League tie, but rather because the game's tomorrow and people won't really even have a chance to listen to us. So there's no point in spending time on the show talking about the Inter Milan game. It will be what it will be, and I'll get a prediction for how you think it'll go at the end. But in terms of Brighton, just to give them a couple of minutes, because like I say, I've gone long on other things and we often do longer on the opposition coming up, but I don't want to disrespect Brighton in any way. That's not what it's about. It's just there were other topics to talk about. They are doing all right in terms of, I'd say they'll be quite content with where they're sitting in the league, well and truly safe and out of any trouble on 33 points. There's a couple of clubs on 33 points. Aston Villa are on it as well, as are Leicester. And when you think about that, Aston Villa and Leicester, for Brighton to be on the same in the same ballpark as them points wise, I'd say they'd have accepted or taken that at the start of the season. In terms of how they've been doing recently, just to go back over their most recent results, last time out wasn't so impressive. It was a 2-1 reversal at Newcastle. Villa beat them 2-0 before that. Burnley beat them 3-0 before that. Man United beat them 2-0 before that. And you've got to go all the way back to the 12th of February for the last time Brighton won, which is away at Watford. It was a 2-0 win. They were put out of the FA Cup by Tottenham in the 4th round. And the 3 results previous to that were all 1-1 draws against Leicester, against Chelsea, and against Crystal Palace. So it's a poor recent run, to say the least. What we have a bit of experience playing against this lot at this stage. In terms of the threat that they pose, when you think of Brighton, what do you think of in terms of we better watch out for X, Y, or Z?
So I think Brighton are having a good season, but current form is not great. I don't think Brighton has any expectations or right to be anywhere where Crystal Palace or Southampton aren't. That's the kind of level they're at. And these teams will finish sort of between 10th and 14th. I think they've got a really nice way of playing. Play real technical football. They play in tight areas. They create chances. We saw that at Anfield. They pushed up and played really well. Obviously, lack of goals is a massive problem for them. They don't score enough goals. They don't convert enough of their chances. They have some really good players. Neil Morpay is their main striker. He's okay. He doesn't quite get enough goals, although, every year he's around that 10 Premier League goal mark. Then they got Danny Welbeck, who's still on the books and gets a run out every now and again. He's a handful with his pace, and he's good in the air. And then, of course, they got all those really good midfield players. They got a lot of technically very, very good midfield players who can cause you a problem, whether that's McAllister or Trossard or Lallana. These boys on the day can cause you a lot of problems, isn't it? But the big thing, the big winner at Brighton is the team. It's a real team game. It doesn't massively matter who plays. Even when they're without players, they still play the same way. They believe in playing forward. They believe in being brave. So it won't be a case of them not wanting to play against us. And I think it can be easy one of those games that it can be really nervy, it can be really tight, or it can be one of them where we just run away with it.
2 questions then to finish up. Do you buy into the whole Graham Potter thing? Are you a fan?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I do, yeah. I like the way he has them playing. I like the way he gets even what you'd call lesser players believing in the way he plays. But probably the most impressive thing I think of Graham Potter is his in-game management. I think he reads the game really well, and I think he's quite prepared to take risks. So I like him. I know there's people already now going, is he all that? I think he is. I think he's potentially a very smart manager.
So you could see him at potentially one of the bigger names over the course of his career, or perhaps pretty even soon.
Well, it's always that case of who's going to be the brave ones, who's going to give him a chances.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think he would look out of place, Trevor. And there's obviously a reason that Manchester United have an interim manager, because they can't find what they want. People can't find what they want, isn't it? So maybe this boy is but he's of course quite happy at Brighton, isn't he? He's a good setup. He knows exactly what's expected, isn't he? And it's going to take a lot for him to go under the kind of pressure, isn't it? But no, I like him. I could see him somewhere else.
Well, Jan, as ever, we've covered a multitude. So for another show where, like I say, we talk about round the houses, thanks a million for that, man.
Yeah, Inter got their season going at the weekend. They won 5-0, but I think we'll be too strong. Just in case you were wondering, Trevor. So 2 or 3-0, I'm not sure, but I think we'll win. I can't see them scoring. They found it really difficult. And Brighton, as I said before, might be a tricky game, isn't it? But again, same sort of scoreline, 2 or 3-0.
Brilliant. I was just going to ask you for that, and you've done it for me. Fair play to you. That's fantastic. That was Jan Molby. I've been Trev Downey. This was Molby on the Spot. And we'll be back with you, as we always are, next week.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.